Hi guys, Bran here, and welcome to another commentary video. And today we're going to be talking about the three things three things that I would change if I was put in charge of behavior tomorrow. What would be the things that I would go for right away? What would I go to the throat for? What would I come for, and why? So number one, and this one's probably the one you see coming the most, is the exhaustion versus slowdown meta needs to die. The game's meta has been incredibly stale and has been horribly stale for such a long period of time. The games are largely played the same way, and people are bringing the same perks all the time, and it gets really exhausting and really frustrating to essentially play the same matches all the time, because especially on the at least with killer, you can like switch up what killer you're playing. On survivor, the gameplay is essentially the same for like every character, because they don't have unique powers or anything. So essentially games have started to feel incredibly samey, and they've really lost. And in a game about asymmetry, having games feel the same is a very dangerous and slippery slope to be on. So we really need to dump this meta. And I think most games that have any sort of like competitiveness to them, even if they're not competitive games, don't let their meta sit there and get sterile for this long. But Dead by Daylight and Behavior are really just gonna sit here and let slowdowns but stay the meta. They let exhaustion stay the meta, both of which are incredibly powerful. Like, slowdown perks are way more powerful than all of the killer's kits and perks, and also exhaustion perks are way more powerful than any of the other survivor perks. Like, these things aren't just, you know, this isn't a difference between A and B tier. This is like a difference between most perks being C tier or worse, and then the rest are like S+ tier. Like, it's pretty ridiculous, the gap between these things, and the meta just needs to die. It just really does, so we can start having, you know, unique and fun games again, and not just entirely having it based upon what perks did you bring into the match. The perks should not be having this huge of a difference on the match. Like, the perks should be helpful. Like, I think a good example is like enduring, brutal strength, spirit fury, like things that help out a little bit but don't dramatically change the match in your favor. Whereas like popping a gen dramatically changes the game in your favor. Dead harding to a palette that you wouldn't have made and been downed for dramatically changes the game. And these things have been wreaking havoc for way too long, and they just need to die. Number two, the maps need to be reworked. The maps need to be changed. The maps in Dead by Daylight, I know they've been worse. I know there's going to be DBD historians who tell me that they've been a lot worse, but we've kind of stopped adjusting maps. There was a time, I know there were, like I said, there's a time where in DBD where like the maps were horrendous and the maps were like huge. And they made a lot of adjustments to those maps to try and make them more fair. But I still largely think that almost all maps in the game are survivor sided, aside from like a handful, if that. And it's really miserable to play the game as killer, because the general, like, it seems like the general idea of map design in Dead by Daylight is make a big map and then spread the gens as far out as possible. And in a game where the micro game is the funnest part and the macro game is really boring, so like holding M1 on a gen is boring and kicking a gen is boring. The chases are what's fun, but there's not a whole lot of chases happening because largely the gens are so out of the way from each other that it's hard for, like, unless, you know, the survivors are being done, which does happen, like during a chase take you to someone on a gen. Like, for the most part, you're mostly safe doing a gen on most of the maps in the game. And like I said, unless a survivor, like one of your teammates, you know, takes a survivor, you know, in a chase to a gen. But like in this regard, like there's not really any like I feel like the fun's kind of like not really happening. The fun part, the chase, is not happening, and that's mostly a symptom of the map. And I feel like all these people complaining about like survivors being able to do gens in secret and how that's like the meta right now is just do the gen, spread out and do the gens. That wouldn't be possible if the gens were just more close in and the maps weren't so gosh darn large. But like, they're not going to do that. And if I was in that position where I could change something right away, the first thing I were to do would scoot the gens in and make some of those really huge maps like Mother's Dwelling, just like kind of shrink them a little bit. And I think that wouldn't even be like just a general nerf to Survivor, because you can accommodate by putting more tiles, or by having the tiles be stronger or more condensed, or leaving them on the edges where you can take a killer over there and waste a lot of time. Like, it's not even, it's just to make the game more interesting. It's just to bring more interactivity to a game that seems to be really focused on making sure that people don't interact. Like, making sure that the best way you can play is by hiding and not talking to the other people, just sitting on a gen and doing this, or the killer's, you know, out here walking over, kicking a gen, walking over, kicking a gen. Like, it's boring, and that boring part of the game needs to die. It just does. And I think the best way to do that is to, like, change the gen locations, make them a little bit more centralized, and maybe make some of the bigger maps smaller. Okay, the third, but definitely not the least, is that the grind in this game definitely needs to be reduced. Like, the grind in this game needs to stop. The grind in this game needs to die. Like, okay, like, I get it, right? I understand that at a certain point in this game, there was like only 3 characters, 3 killers, and 4 survivors. And in that regard, like, making the grind really heavy made sense because you didn't want people skyrocketing to the end like right away, right? You didn't want people just like finishing all 7 characters right away, right? So that made sense. And especially with prestiging, you really wanted prestiging to mean something. So you really wanted to have, like, you know, people have a really hard time getting it. But at this point, with 25 killers in the game, you know, like, maybe it's time we, you know, bring down the blood point grind, because at this point it's kind of ridiculous, and by kind of I mean a lot, to expect us to get 3 levels of each perk when each character comes with 3 perks, and sometimes there's 2 survivors and 1 DLC, so we got to get 6 perks at 3 different levels, and that requires us going through so many different blood webs of not only that character but every character. If we have a character perked out, we need to go through and spend blood points on every single character that we have perked out to re-perk them out so we can actually enjoy the game. Because I'll tell you what, where the game really starts to come alive is when you can run any build you want. Like, it's fun to run, you know, the perks you have and the items you have, but the game really comes alive both on Survivor and Killer when you can just run whatever build you would like. I think that's where the game really comes alive, but like, getting there is so miserable, dude. Getting there is so miserable, and keeping people perked out, absolutely miserable. Like with Killer now, if a new killer comes out, just like Pinhead just did, and he comes with 3 perks, you gotta re-perk out 24 other freaking people at 3, and those are 3 ranks for each. That's 3 ranks for each perk. So you have to go through and redo this process again 24 times just so you can enjoy the new character's perks on a different killer. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. It just is. It's just a terrible and outdated system, and they really need to do away with it. So yeah, that is going to be my 3 things that I would change about Dead by Daylight if I had full control. That'd be like day 1, the things I would go after immediately. Hopefully these are things that you like and that you agree with. And if you don't, you know, there's always the chance to tell me in the commentos below. So yeah, don't worry about it. You know, let's just have a good conversation about it and, you know, make it cordial. But I hope you enjoyed the video, friendos. If you liked this video, make sure you do the likey down in the bottom right-hand corner. And if you want to see more of my videos, because I do upload daily, make sure that you do the sub-aronis, because, you know, the YouTube algorithm is really mean, and it'll hide my videos if you're not subbed. Like, you won't ever see them again. So that's how you get them to keep showing up on the front page. So yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else for you. Thank you so much for watching today. And other than that, I don't think I have anything else for you. I'll see you in the next video, and if I don't, I'll see you when I see you, friends. Goodbye.